Hi everyone, it's Vivi and let's talk about Jak and Daxter. This topic might come off a bit unusual, surprising to some of you, so with that, I hope you enjoy it. Alright, was Jak really mute in the Precursor Legacy? We ask this question because after the first game, the Precursor Legacy, he speaks. So what gives? Look, let's put two things aside, alright? The whole Naughty Dog wanted to go in a different direction. We get it. Realistically, that's what they wanted. They wanted to show the world. They could make a game similar to, Ratchet & Clank. Something different than Crash Bandicoot and, what they usually did prior to Jak 2. The other case being going with the classic silent protagonist treatment to try and put the player into the character's shoes. Especially in Jak 1, how scenes have NPCs being the focus on screen, as if the NPC is talking to the actual player. Now in Jak 2, we have a scene which perhaps you think answers the question. Let me play it for you.
We're looking for a guy named Torn. Core sent us. Are you Torn?
Maybe this guy's a mute, like you used to be.
New faces make me nervous.
Jak and Daxter were looking for Torn in Jak 2. Daxter says, maybe he's mute, like you used to be. Now Daxter is known to be a joker, right? Him saying Jak was mute is not entirely true. Jak, although spoke nothing during cutscenes in the Precursor Legacy, he did show signs of having the ability to speak. One obvious sign of this? Well, his battle grunts in Jak 1. Ha, hoo, ha, yeah, right? That already tells us Jak did not have damaged, let's say, vocal cords. He had the ability to produce sound. Also, paying close attention to some scenes in Jak 1, Jak did try to speak, but was interrupted by Daxter. Here's an example for you, let me play a scene.
What in green tarnation do you two want?
We was...
Samos questioning the two, like what they want and all. Why bother him? Jak was about to speak. Looking at his facial expression and animation, he was gonna say something but got interrupted by Daxter. But the question still remains. Jak had an ample amount of time to at least say something. He was just very quiet and basically let himself get interrupted. Bear with me here, okay? As if he was shy or anxious. As if certain situations made him want to speak. So let me repeat what I said previously. Jak being mute is not entirely true. First things first, what is the definition of being mute? Mutism. Mutism is a rare childhood condition characterized by consistent failure to speak in situations where talking is expected. So hold up, Vivi, this is a Jak and Daxter video. Are you seriously going over definitions of mutism? Yes, I am, alright? So that's why I said bear with me. Notice the keywords consistent failure. It doesn't necessarily say can't or the person is disabled. Now when one cannot speak physically, yes, people also use the term mute. So mutism comes in two categories, one being physical, and two, selective mutism. Outdated term being elective mutism. Physical mutism, we can cross that one out of the list. As I said previously, Jak was making sounds. He could speak, but wasn't. As for the outdated term elective mutism, in 1877 it was called aphasia voluntaria. Elective mutism described people who, keyword, refused to speak. And later that term got switched to selective mutism. These days, mutism is not a result of trauma according to studies. What happens generally, one refuses to talk about their trauma, but don't remain silent completely. But when it comes to books, fiction, movies, let's say authors tend to stick to the old idea of selective mutism being elective. The idea of refusal. Movie House of Cards, anyone for example, a certain character remained silent after losing someone dear to them. According to some facts about mutism, according to Anxiety Canada, most children develop selective mutism between the ages of 2 and 4 years old. Despite an early onset, children with selective mutism are not typically identified until school entry, and often do not receive professional help until they are 6 to 8 years old. I take it young Jak and Jak 2 falls within that age range. Did we ever get an age for that kid? I don't think so. If I'm wrong, say so in the comments. Also, about that kid, he didn't speak, and judging from his behavior in some scenes, he did look like a very shy kid. Right at the beginning, he seemed to fear Daxter, covering his eyes, avoiding the character. This one part, he seems to fidget a lot, feeling shaky, moving his thumbs around, moving his head left and right. Yes, you know, they were talking left and right, but he was very shaky in this scene. Those can be symptoms of nervousness or anxiety. Experts believe that this selective problem is associated with anxiety and fear in social situations, such as in school or in the company of adults. Affected children are typically shy and are especially so in the presence of strangers and unfamiliar surroundings or situations. However, the behaviors of children with this condition go beyond shyness. Yes, I'm going into the topic of anxiety. That's exactly why I told you guys this topic might come off a bit unusual. So Vivi, you're saying Jack had some sort of anxiety disorder at a young age. Perhaps. We have no idea what young Jack went through apart from him being taken away from his father Damus. Well, technically, young Jack wandered the streets until Vigor found him and tried using his purity in order to get closer to Precursor tech. Who knows what Vigor did to the child? We can only imagine. Perhaps young Jack remembered seeing Damus being taken away. In other words, we're talking about separation anxiety at a young age. Age 3, let's say, which can happen if one goes through that type of situation. Anxiety is treatable, they say. Not being treated can worsen the symptoms. And there are some people out there who do suffer with anxiety and do not seek help. Remember, young Jack was sent to the past. I'm not going to talk about the whole time travel thing, don't worry. He went back to the past to be raised by Samos, a lovely father figure, we can all imagine. With time, you might feel less anxious, especially if you feel you're in a comfortable spot, such as the case with Samos and Jack. I take it Samos raised Jack well. He's all grown up, healthy and all, and Jack won, right? And that caused him to feel more at ease, despite the lack of talking. But as I said, if anxiety is left untreated, it can come and it can go. It's not an easy thing to live with. The fact Jack was willing to speak in certain moments tells me he was comfortable in that instant, but he wasn't always. As for Jack too, all that dark eco being pumped into him for 2 years, well, let's first analyze his first sentence. I'm going to kill Praxis. He's mad, really mad. That's the first spark of emotion that arose. That's the first thing he thought of. Out of any possible words he could have used, he said kill. Now we can all understand why. He was suffering. Dark Eco plays many roles. It acts differently on everyone. The fact Jack kept on speaking after his injection with Dark Eco, it's highly likely all his past fears and anxiousness got locked away. It's not like he said one sentence angry in the beginning, I'm gonna kill Praxis, and then kept on remaining quiet. That's not the case at all. He immediately started speaking, as if a barrier happened in his mind. Can we all agree Dark Eco? The more you come into contact with it, it can mess up your mind. Didn't Errol basically get consumed by Dark Eco? The way it acted on Jack, all of his past fears, nervousness, anxiety, it got locked away. There is one thing left to mention. Selective mutism is usually treated either the behavioral therapy way, the cognitive behavioral therapy, or play therapy way. Both cognitive and behavioral rely on exposure, gradually exposing the child to what they fear. Young Jack feared danger, for example. Of course he's a kid, we can understand that. When the metalheads were brought up in Jack 2, he'd hide. He was fearing pain. Can we say that he was fearing pain? The possibility of getting hurt. As for the Dark Eco experiment, Jack did go through a lot of pain, in a very unusual and frightening way. Instead of Jack gradually being exposed to something he fears, boom, he got injected and ejected for 2 years. Okay, Vivi, if he was afraid of getting hurt, then how come in Jack when he's dealing with a bunch of enemies? Well, that's the thing about Samos. He felt comfortable. Whatever Samos taught Jack, he just felt at ease. And the thing I said before, separation anxiety, it does happen in children. It can go away at a certain age, but even with your best efforts as a parent, it can remain and be more difficult. As for Jack, he was raised by Samos. He was 15 in Jack 1. If he was, let's say, 3 or 4 years old in Jack 2, you know, younger Jack, he's been raised by Samos for more than 10 years. So we can say he felt more comfortable, gradually, despite still the lack of speech in Jack 1. And as for Dark Eco, the fact he started talking, can we say Dark Eco indirectly treated Jack? I mean, he went from not speaking to speaking, and very angry in Jack 2. So yes, I could have just said Dark Eco made him speak, but I did want to dive deeper into this topic. So, to answer your question, Was Jack mute in Jak 1? My answer is, to some extent. Alright folks, this is it for the video. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. Do you believe Jak was selectively mute in the first game or not? Explain what you think. And yeah, I've been Vivi and thank you for watching.